So foot health. It is 2024. So if you're into the foot thing, so are we.
So are we.
This is something we've talked about endlessly. And when we first got together, we spent a lot of time and effort on your feet. And you've recently said, hey, you really like to dive back into that because that feeling and that connection with the ground that you've had that you were able to establish, but it was just something you've overlooked for so long.
I never even thought it was a thing until I met you.
When we first started diving into the foot, what was the big like moments where you were like, at any point did you were like, I'm wasting my time? Like, why are we doing stuff like this?
When you initially brought it up, like, breaking up plantar fasciitis, walking laterally across like the battling ropes, the fast ropes, I'm like, my feet feel fine. And then it wasn't until you really started to break down like big toe down, heel down. Hey, you're starting to rock over a little bit more on your feet. And then I realized that I was looking at my foot as the entirety, not the sum of all parts. Like I wasn't able to separate like big toe down. It was just my foot's my foot. My hand's my hand vice. My the tip of my middle finger, like being able to drive that into the ground. And now I feel like I'm so much more aware. When we started walking across those ropes, I was breaking up so much. I don't know if that's fascia or scar tissue or whatever it was. Like I'd never done anything like that before, and it hurt for the first couple of days. Like it felt awkward, and then after that, it was like almost like a massage. I'm super ticklish. I don't like people touching my feet, so I just neglect them. I've never had a foot massage. I don't get down with that. But walking across those ropes, the frozen bottle of water, the little things, like, dude, if you can just incorporate this every day, I mean, we got so many guys with really significant lower leg injuries, ankle injuries. I mean, Joey's got his ankles fused, multiple pins, plates, screws, Cole, same thing. And nobody ever talks about ankle mobility or overall foot health. But I mean, you see a lot of guys in there getting constantly worked on for plantar fasciitis and all these fallen arches and all this other stuff, and we just neglect it. Like, your feet are your feet, clip your toenails, change your socks, you'll be fine. Like, I mean, there's some guys, some serious issues, man, and that's a really limiting factor. I mean, you're supporting your entire structure on those two things all day long. And yeah, until I met you, I just neglected it. I never even thought it was a thing.
When you say the foot is a foot, I think that's hilarious because a lot of people think that it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, my foot's my foot. There's no separation of parts. But I mean, your foot in itself is 26 bones, 33 joints, over 100 tendons that have this, that is your first physical interaction with the ground. Like, obviously, we have an ocular reception of our environment, smell, but the touch is our foot as it strikes the ground and it sends that signal back up to the hip. Like when you're walking around a room, you're being able to like feel your room across the floor for balance, for redirection. But the foot in itself is interesting because it's just a trampoline. It's an elastic trampoline that propels our body across the floor. And unfortunately, we spend most of our day in sensory deprivation chambers for our feet.
Hmm.
That just your foot fits in it, and then the shoe does all the work, and your foot never gets to be a foot, as you said, a flipper for force. When we first started, I think one of the big things was when we shifted your footwear
Yeah.
from a training standpoint. And for you guys in attendance right now, we're just going to kind of dive right in that. So starting out, you probably have seen these shoes. This is Vivo Barefoot, but just a barefoot training shoe. If you don't have access to a barefoot training shoe, or you don't necessarily want to make the jump from a fun standpoint, just training with socks.
Yeah.
Training barefoot. But like DJ said, the big thing with being barefoot or training or focusing on the foot is that extension of the foot when we're walking, making sure we get that good extension of the toe when we walk, and as well having that flat foot shape that we talked about. DJ's mentioned in the past the shoe wear and just having that slight upslope of that toe box. And that's going to get that tension across that bottom half of the foot there because we're constantly in that stretched, lengthened position. So I like barefoot training shoes for that thing. And also we get the wide toe box so our toes get to splay and spread. So when we're coaching things and driving our foot into the ground, we let our whole foot spread and it's not jammed up into this. Like, I'm sure in the past, if you lifted in like Vans or Converse or Chuck Taylors,
No, I used to live in Chuck T's.
yeah, great shoe to lift in because you have a flat bottom and you have a good flat interaction with the ground, which is what you want. But if your toes, like me, I have a wide foot, wide toes, my toes kind of get like in this kind of, I'm exaggerating, but like in this jammed up position. So if I'm cueing someone to drive their big toe into the ground or spread your toes, they physically can't. So they don't have that connection with the ground. With taking your shoes off, if you don't have access to a barefoot training shoe or a barefoot training type shoe, it allows you to connect the dots in the weight room.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I did all my lifting in just that universal shoe. So, taught like an Asics runner, a New Balance running shoe, and we would just lift in them. And the one thing I noticed when I got with you was how much weaker I was because of the elevated heel,
Mm.
that squishy heel. And then I remember a bunch of times she like kicked shoes off. I haven't really done a lot of barefoot lifting. Like I was there when like the 5-finger Vibram shoes
Yeah,
came out, and
yeah,
guys were running in those, and like I always felt weird doing it. I felt like there wasn't enough cushion, and that's because I'm a heel striker,
yeah.
and it felt super uncomfortable. And then the more I've been in these Vivo barefoots, it's like, okay, dude, I'm so much more aware. You just think about like just the overall flexibility. Like it's such a rigid heel
Yeah.
that it's great for lifting, like squatting, picking up heavy stuff from the floor. But when I try to transition, I try to build in like that proprioception, the foot awareness. I lose it with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might as well just be in a set of concrete blocks. I mean, great shoe, but it has its limitations. And we transition over to something like this. I mean, like brother, you
It's
are
nothing.
making intimate contact with the ground. And to your exact point,
Intimate contact with the ground.
I mean, like it's such a thin layer that's keeping you from the actual ground, just enough to protect you. But when you say big toe down, I can't feel big toe down in this because it's a rigid sole. This thing is flexible enough. I can drive my big toe into the earth and I can make that contact. And now I'm so much more aware. But I mean, we've been through all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was king for a day, that pretty flat sole is where I'm at, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like a big elevated heel because ultimately it makes me a toe walker.
Mm-hmm.
It gets that heel, slightly elevated, and I see guys just they tend to walk with their heels elevated, and now you get this forward head posture. Now you're always looking down, leads to neck issues, lower back issues. I'm starting to break down my posture. It's like, I could just switch that just by swapping shoes, just by walking barefoot. If you watch people walk barefoot, heads up, vertical spine, they're aware the entire time. They're rolling their feet, accepting the weight, flexing off of it. When you don't have that, you might as well be walking around in clogs, and you can hear it.
When you say that I've heard you talk on the range and you say the feathered, like you're feathering across the floor. And I feel when you are walking in something that does not give you that cushion, you physically have to, or you're going to feel very clunky. But if you're walking in a shoe with a lot of cushion, you can heel strike because that shoe's going to rebound you right back up. You don't have to use that elasticity of that trampoline of that bottom of the foot. But that shoe is a great shoe for training. This is an overall great shoe. Good support here, good support here, good support to run short distances. I wouldn't run long distances in this. This would hurt me a lot. But sometimes with these overall training shoes, they hurt for me even to walk. Like especially here in GBRS when we have the concrete floors. Like if I'm standing or walking on something with a hard sole too much, it makes my feet hurt, honestly.
Dude, I don't know how many weeks it took when we transitioned from a shoe like that over to the barefoot shoe. It took a little bit. I told you on 20-minute walks,
Yeah.
like my feet were so tired.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like my arches are breaking down. And after a month or so, I couldn't imagine going back now. Like this is the best overall I felt, and I have so much better connection with the ground. It's like we talk about CQB, fighting, grappling, whatever it is. Like I am hyper aware of my feet, and yeah, we try to open up our toes, get them as wide as you can. I can actually feel it now. Before, now I'm all constricted. Like you might as well just tie my feet up. Like I'm trying to open up. I'm trying to create that tension, like open that pickle jar effect, and I can't do it if I can't make that intimate contact with the ground. And so many people overlook it. I know I did for forever, and I'm so glad I have it now. And now we just translate, that same methodology across all footwear. Is that running? Is it this? Is it CQB? Is it some tactical application? Whatever it's going to be, but it still looks the same thing.
For those that are watching, obviously that barefoot shoe is great for training, short distances. I've done like a little bit of sprinting in them, but I'm not going to run long distance in something like this. This would be too violent for me, I guess. Just striking the ground. 230 pounds isn't fun. This is Jared's shoe, pretty traditional running shoe, a Hoka shoe. I don't know anything about that brand, but this would be more of that cushioned approach. Maybe you're standing for long periods of time or running long distance. Nothing's wrong with shoes like this, but it's just understanding the application of when I would choose this shoe. Like if I was going to run and lift, I'm probably going to lift in a minimal shoe, and I'm going to bring these with me. And I change into this, then get that running in, or even standing. Like the barefoot shoe is great, but if I stand all day in that, like at KTCs, there's a couple times I packed those as my only shoes. That 12 hours a day in that shoe, 235 pounds, isn't fun. When we were in Nebraska with those concrete floors in that range, I was like, oh, I made a mistake. That's a lot of weight just sitting on those feet. But all of them have the different tools. But it's interesting because I think shoe wear, for a lot of people, their training shoes are their old shoes.
Exactly. You wear them out in lifestyle until you, at a certain point, you're like, it's almost like that shoe your mom made you have. Like,
It's your grass cutting shoe.
Exactly. Throw on your play shoes, like throw on your go outside shoes. Like,
Yep.
well, I'm gonna wear these things until I break them out, and then I'm gonna transition to the gym with them. Like, that was the wrong approach. Yeah, I'd have like the Asics or I'd have whatever else. I've logged a couple 100 miles in them. They're kind of shot out. I'm like, well, now I'll just lift and run in them. Now I'll just do them both. And for me, with that elevated heel, with that cushion built in, I always felt like it gave me an artificial arch that I didn't want, and it caused so much foot pain, and I kind of just accepted instead of, well, let's just kick them off. Let's just lift with no shoe, and now when it's time to run, I'll just throw the shoes on.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, you just don't do it. Gym rules, got to have closed-toed shoes on, look, whatever it is. We got our own gym. We don't have to do that now.
Yep.
And, yeah, I mean, just being playful with it. But I know so many guys that get put in these orthotics and all these inserts and stuff like that, and it hurts them for a while. And I would say, my father-in-law really struggles with his feet. He's got a bunch of stuff going on. But he spends quite a bit of time trying to break up that arch support, grinding it out, rolling on the frozen water bottles, all of that. And it's like, if you break up that fascia, then you put the insert. Now you have that freedom of movement to actually accept the insert. Most guys just put them in there because somebody told them they needed it. It's like, God, my feet hurt so bad over and over. What do? A week later, they just pull them out. It's like, it's uncomfortable. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not giving it enough time, or that's just the wrong shoe for you because of your lifestyle, because of your lifting protocol.
Exactly.
Like, they gave you a shoe based on you just being a normal human. You didn't tell them you're lifting 5 days a week, you're pulling heavy off the floor, you're also running, you're also climbing, or whatever else. Like, you got to get a shoe that's well-rounded for you in the application you're trying to, overall apply it to.
I think also with a rigid shoe, something I always look for is the wear patterns. So if I have a new client that's coming in, I'm going to take their shoe off and just a shoe that they've been wearing, because it's a training shoe. They've probably been wearing it for a while. I'm going to check the loading patterns of that shoe, the wear pattern. So is it wearing more on the outside, more on the inside? And I'll even take the sole out of the shoe sometimes, because the imprint of their foot gives a good insight of where the weight is sitting in their body, because of just, if you've wore it so much, you can see their points of contact. So some people don't even have access to that big toe, that first metatarsal area. So when they walk, they just stick, so you can see it like in their insole of their shoe. So these are things that your foot kind of adapts to the environment that it's in. So if you wear a specific shoe all the time, your foot is going to adapt to that, which has been a huge thing for me. I love shoes. I love having a variety of shoes, but because I wear the barefoot shoe so much, now my foot is so splayed out. It's like, damn, I like that pair of shoes, but I can't wear it. Yeah. But these are all training specific. So a lot of the questions we get is, okay, this is best case scenario, training, running, multi-purpose, but most guys don't have access to that. So when we talk about that tactical professional, you have a little bit of a difference. I want you to give two perspectives just in case. But for you, when you were operating, when you were doing those things, what was the shoe wear of choice for you?
Solomon was a big one right out of the gate. Everybody went with that. There'd be a low cut, kind of a mid cut. We'd have the cold weather boots, but as they start getting bigger and bigger, the sole becomes so thick, so rigid, and then the actual grip and tread becomes so pronounced, you start picking up a bunch of rocks. And now you talk about noise reduction inside of concrete floors, you're dragging rocks through them, so that was always a big issue. But then just the overall weight. And you think about, some points you're at 3 points of contact and you're doing it for 4 or 5 hours, man. Like, the weight of that shoe, it does matter after a while. Like, you become so tired, your hip flexor gets smoked, then what happens?
Yep.
Chest comes out, ass goes back, now your lower back starts to spasm, now you just can't get comfortable, and it all really just starts with the feet all the way up. So, yeah, I mean, try to break the whole thing down. Towards the tail end of my career, I was going in like an MTE version of Vans. Like the Pat Moores were my favorite ones, and that's what I wore for my last couple of deployments. And I've been wearing Vans since 1986.
Yeah.
And I've had hundreds of pairs of them, and I really like them because of that flat sole approach. It doesn't have that big pronounced toe lift, so I always liked them for that. But I feel like I can get the same intimate contact in Chuck Taylors, but the Vans are a little bit wider, so I feel like I can actually open up in them. So when I put on Vans, I feel the most comfortable out of anything I do, just for lifestyle. And then when I transition to CQB, the flat range, something like that, I feel like I'm pretty connected to it. But then you have to have something with the same kind of ergonomics. Now I look for the same thing in a training shoe. I want a flat sole. I don't want an elevated heel. I don't want to become a toe walker. Now it throws my posture off. I want to be connected to the ground. So for me, I like a thinner sole, nice and flat, not a huge toe up sweep.
When you've talked about whether you're shooting pistol, carbine, whatever, you always talk about having the same platform. Do you look at the shoe kind of as a similar way, like a platform that's similar? Obviously, you can't wear the same. I mean, I guess you could. A similar shoe across all ways, so you're always kind of cueing things the same.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of like the mountaineering boots. That sole is 2 or 3 inches thick. That's just me being 2 or 3 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Like now I'm walking on the platform and it translates my proprioception. Like how well can I make intimate contact with the ground? Well, now I've got a 3 inch buffer of hard plastic. It's very different now. And I see that for everything. Think about, like, this is a good like mid-range shoe. This is by Ridgemont, my buddy George from Firebird Skydiving. He's got a collaboration coming out. They drop the actual hooks and stuff, but that's a really good mid-range shoe. But even the grooves in the bottom, you've got great traction, but it's not that deep crevice that's going to lock in a bunch of rocks.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Like you can still kind of flex them, but it's pretty rigid. So like when you set them on the ground, it's not a huge toe up sweep. Like I don't consider that because when I weight it, now it sets flat. It is a little bit more pronounced and you look at like a set of Vans, but not by a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not very squishy. I feel like it's pretty rigid. When I was moving around them the other day, they felt really good. But I mean, it's a durable boot, not very heavy. Feels a little bit heavier than a pair of Vans.
When you would be on a would you wear a different shoe if you had to go in further, or did you keep it standard the whole time?
I try to keep it standard the whole time. Inclement weather, like if you're in snow or you have it's just pissed down rain and you're gonna be soaking wet. Sometimes we'd swap them out. And you try not to base it off just the infill, but sometimes you just can't. Like I have to wear this shoe because of the weather we have to traverse to be able to get to the actual target. But once you get there, I wish you could have done a shoe swap. Right? Like some of those big solo boots and stuff like that, they're so loud. And when you get them on a tile floor, you get them inside of a structure, they're loud, dude. You can't get it back. I can't roll my foot now because I'm on clogs. That's why when you get in Vans, people make fun of me around here. I know they said it to you. Like I creep around here like a ninja. Like you never hear me coming. It's because I wear shoes that don't make any noise.
Soft.
Yeah. Soft.
Accepting shoes that when you walk across.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the same thing for that. Now I have better proprioception. I can rapidly change direction so much faster in those because I have intimate contact with the ground. I'm not on this huge buffer. And for me, I love them. But it's the same thing. Like Under Armour made these badass pair. The Tennessee's like we can kind of use this like a mid-range trainer.
Yeah.
So kind of like the barefoot shoe. I mean, these things collapse pretty good. I mean,
there's a good amount of flexibility in this.
Yeah, but I like them because they're flat.
Yep.
Right. It's not a huge elevated heel. So now when I load these things, like I can do heavy back squats, pick up heavy things from the floor. I can still run them. I can still jump in them, but it doesn't feel like I'm in a clog. Right. Nice and low cut. I mean, they're lightweight. My favorite out of all of them, just a pair of Vans. The Skate Highs, just the normal ones. I mean, they flex really well. I break these things in. I mean, like that's ultimately what I want. I want a flexible shoe that's going to last. And you can get them in different materials and stuff like that. But when I go to translate, that thing feels very similar when it's on my feet to where I have like a Vivo, just a little bit heavier.
I think with shoes as well, that's an overridden thing is the sole of the shoe. So like this is a good example, and I've seen you walk in these, is we don't want the foot. Some of these are so soft and so cushioned, like the fabric of them. Like this is a good example that if my foot is going to spill past the sole. So if you're doing any sort of lateral movements or cutting, now my foot is spilling over the outside edge of the sole. I'm losing stability. Odd things can happen where these are that outside that ridge, that stop point, I think is very important. And obviously a little bit more of a mid. So some people feel like you don't want to have too low of a shoe, I guess, but I like the flexibility of those. And once again, they're very soft, they're very forgiving. But if you are very mountainous, rocky, those may be a little uncomfortable over a long period of time.
Yeah, you think about little micro rocks that are smaller than a fist, they become really uncomfortable. And that's why that MT I had with Pat Moore's Pro Model, they were the best hybrid shoe I've ever had. Like if I could ever do a Pro Model with Vans, I'd base it off that.
Yeah.
It was just such a good shoe, really good grip, flat sole, but not big enough tread where you were picking up a bunch of rocks. That's one of the things. Like a shoe's great for this one discipline. Like all you're going to do is CQB. You're going to land on the door, hit the target. Great. Perfect. Well, now we've got to walk 6 miles to get there through uneven terrain. Well, I can't teleport there. I'm going to have to get over it. Like I don't want to be miserable the time I get there. So what's a good in between?
Yeah.
It's going to give me the comfortability I need. It's going to give me the stability in the ankle for all the little ankle supports. And it's stuff that we talk about how bad guys roll their ankles. So like I like a Skate High just for that. On some of the lower profile shoes, guys definitely have rolled some ankles. So it's trying to find that happy medium, whatever works best for you.
Well, I know some people have reached out and talked about, hey, they may look a little granola, but man, I love Birkenstocks. And once again, I look at shoes as a tool. It's a tool, and some tools can do multiple things, and some tools they can't. I'm not going to train in a pair of Birkenstocks, but for like I'm just cruising around, going for walks, whatever. Just that splay of the foot, and it just allows my foot to be a foot, like more of a foot. Lack of, I guess, a different verbiage that you chose. But these are all shoes that we could use, different tools, whatnot. The things that we have done in the weight room for trying to break up the bottom of that foot. So you talk about the fascia and breaking up the bottom of the foot and how that feeds that signal. Is there anything that you have found to be the most effective? I mean, we've done everything from, and for those watching, we're going to show a practical application of all this stuff in the gym for part 2. But walking on ropes, walking on water bottles, breaking up the stuff with manual release, even doing things to strengthen the foot, specifically that floating heel setup. We're just allowing that heel to hang off, so we're building the strength of the foot. Is there anything that you found that you've been like, that's been very impactful?
What's up, guys? DJ Shipley, retired Navy SEAL.
Vernon Griffith, 2024 Tactical Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year.
I've dealt with more injuries and physical limitations than you can possibly imagine.
Our 5-day program will get you out of pain, improve your mobility, strength, and power.
This program is not just for operators, but don't take our word for it.
The GBRS program has been life-changing. It's helped me be consistent, and it's been an asset to my weight loss. I've never been in better shape in my life.
We have thousands of success stories. There's no reason you can't be the next.
Start today with a free 7-day trial. Walking on the fast ropes for sure. Lacrosse ball, just breaking it up in the arch of your foot. Because you'll get these spots. I get them right on the inside of my arch, like right there towards the inside edge. I'll get a super sore spot and I'll start to grind it out, just like a knot in your trap. You get a massage therapist there on it. I'll just start to rock it, and you can feel it's like, and then slow but surely.
Yeah.
You slowly start to feather out, and you're like, okay, there we are. A little more, 2 more pounds of pressure. It's like, oh, my God, I'm so much better now. Okay. Be able to chip away at that.
If you've ever spent time like working on the bottom of your foot, I think you don't realize it, because if I'm just walking around for weeks on it, whatever it is, I'm not thinking about what my foot feels like. But the second I give it attention, like you just said, and I am accepting something or massaging something, the second I remove whatever that is and I walk around, I'm like, my foot feels springier. It feels more elastic, and which changes my gait, because now I'm relying on that spring of my foot going up into my calf, going up into my hip, and it allows me to propel my body versus kind of like lumbering, where my foot's just boom, 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 heavy.
Well, we've had guys at KTC, we talk about feathering the foot, and like, oh, I can't because my arch and this and that. And some guys like, grab a 45-pound bar. Roll your foot out.
Yeah.
Like put some weight on it, lean over into it, and just slowly start to apply some pressure. And like, it hurts. Yeah, massage hurts too, dude. That's what you're doing. You're giving yourself a self-massage on your feet. Grind that thing out. Break up that fascia a little bit, and then just keep that going over and over. If you got foot issues, it's no different than a lower back injury or hip issues. Like, motion's lotion, brother.
Yep.
Do it every day. Just chip it away. You're talking 3 or 4 minutes a day, dude. Change everything about you.
When you think about the foot in general, I mean, there's 26 bones in each foot. So that's over 50 bones within 3 inches of the ground. And you only have 200 bones in your body. So 1/4 of the bones in your body are within 3 inches of the ground. And all those bones that they articulate with each other. So if you're constantly wearing a very rigid, structured shoe, that foot doesn't have to do all the things that a foot normally would do. And when people say, like, I have foot issues or I have foot pain and I don't know what to do, it's unfortunate that the fastest response is normally insoles or more cushioned shoe. It's almost like in society now, when we need to fix a foot, or not fix a foot, but if we're having problems with the foot, we just Band-Aid it rather than actually addressing those issues of restoring range of motion, restoring movement.
Yeah, you see people buy the orthotic shoes for like old people.
They get expensive too, man.
Yeah, man. And it's like, now that's just one more thing that's limiting your focus. Like now you're like, oh, my feet hurt. I'm just going to buy these shoes. You're not even going to address the issues in the foot. You're just going to try to slap a Band-Aid on and hope you get through. It's not going to work, man. You've been trying that, dude. You're 45 years old. You've been trying that your whole life.
It's like that joke of like when you get the dad shoes, and it's almost like, I don't want to compare it to glasses, but the second you start wearing glasses, your vision just declines, because now you become reliant on that, and then you get a worse prescription. You get a worse prescription. It's the same way with the feet. Like, oh, my feet hurt. I get more of an orthotic shoe. Then I get more of an orthotic shoe. Now I'm getting inserts. Now I'm going to a podiatrist that's giving me medically prescribed inserts. And it's just like, at no point are you turning this thing around.
Yeah, the next thing you know, you're in Velcro shoes right now. Like, my lower back's jammed up. Like, I don't want to lean over. I'm just going to Velcro these bad. I mean, that's what happens. It's subtle little things that add up to be a huge event in the end.
And if you walk around, like I've been able to help people with back pain from their foot issues, from different
It's
footwear.
because they're guarding it so much.
Yeah,
Like, dude, you look at Joey. I mean,
it's
I felt,
painful.
I felt Joey from bottom of his knee to his ankle, 2 plates, probably 30 screws in each leg. I mean, he's in a significant amount of pain, dude.
Yeah.
He just is, and it's limited him. I mean, like, dude, he had screws going through his ankle that were basically like a forced. It was kind of like a fusion, but it wasn't supposed to be. They had to go in there and remove the screws and do this and do that. I mean, when he gets done at the end of the day, I mean, his ankles are black and blue, swollen so bad. Like, you see him in here every day, chipping away at it.
Yeah.
Doing the elevated heels, just anything to try to get that flexion back in there. But that's what you have to do. It's not going to get better with time. We've already tried that. We've already tried neglecting it. That's not going to work.
No.
You got to address it.
When it comes to preparation and training, I know you've done more than a fair share of running in soft sand. So sand is great. It's going to build up all the the small muscles of the foot and good articulation. But for you, with your experience of skateboarding, I think it's real interesting the way you talk about your foot and the capabilities you have and how you've had so much success while training in the teams because of that.
I think that cannot be ignored. And we talk about going through buds and, yeah, the long soft sand conditioning runs, and there's huge kelp beds all over California, San Diego, Coronado, and you'll roll your ankle on them. And I mean, bone into the sand. I mean, a full roll at a full sprint, and you bounce back up and you continue the run, and you wake up next morning like it never happened. Like, well, how is that? Like, I don't know how many times I've rolled my ankles, and I mean, when I mean roll, I mean
You're
black
on
and
the
blue.
ground.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
black and blue, like it's fractured for sure. And now it's just not. It's a severe strain. Bounce up 24 hours later, and it's like, okay, like it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine. And I think it's all those little micro injuries over and over and over, just building that resiliency. And now just my tendons are stronger. Like, never broken one skydiving, 4,000 skydives, like all the skateboarding, all the stuff in here we do in the gym, like all the fast articulation, spinning, redirectional power into the floor, and they don't roll anymore. And I think that's because of all those little micro injuries over and over and over. Just rolling my ankles a couple hundred times, they just don't break.
It's just an exposure to stress. Like you've told me in the past, like when you guys would do training of like trying to build up resiliency of bone, you're just building up resiliency of the ankles, and it's adapted to the environment. I mean, you skateboarded your entire life.
Yep.
So think about, and I can't remember the word you talked about it when you were talking to me about it, but when you land on the skateboard, not
primo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how many times does that happen?
Oh, a lot, dude. Especially you start going down stairs and doing, bigger flip tricks and stuff like that. And when the skateboard lands on its side, I mean, all your body weight is landing right on top of that center of your foot going down 10, 12 stairs. That's a lot, dude. And most people break their feet. Like, I've definitely broken my feet, but not from that. I definitely haven't rolled an ankle, and I have taken some serious spills, dude. And I think it's just because I've done it so many times, I just bounce back up. And, nope, we're good.
You were training foot and ankle health without even knowing it.
Yeah.
And now because of that, you've got to this. And there's plenty of things we do in the GBRS performance program to build resilient feet and ankles and to address this issue for many people that have overlooked it. But it's that constant exposure of challenging the foot, challenging the ankle. The foot feeds up to the ankle. But there's also a lot of misconceptions of the feet. Like people say, like, oh man, I got flat feet. I don't know what to do. Flat feet are not a problem at all. The fastest people in the world all have flat feet. And it's like this society, and I don't know if it's social media or whatever, is like, oh, that's the biggest problem is flat feet. You got to restore your arch. No, you can strengthen your foot. You can strengthen that area by doing things like we do, like the floating heel and working on the bottom of the foot. But a flat foot is not a problem at all. They're like, oh, you have collapsed arches. That's the worst thing. So does Usain Bolt. So does half the athletes that you probably watch every Sunday that are extremely fast, because now that foot strikes the ground, it's able to pronate and I can redirect off. I don't have to wait for that. I know I've worked with guys, I don't want to drop any names, but have arches like freaking billy goats. And it's like you're walking like you got a high heel on. And I'm like, that is the most impressive arch I have ever seen, my friend. But they're so bound up with issues, and that issue goes up to the hip, it goes up to the back. And now, like, you can't tell me for a second the foot is not the root problem of all of that.
It is, dude. It is. Like, if you got a bad ankle, you got bad feet, your gait changes. You start favoring one side. Let's say you have a bad left foot. What are you going to do? Stop putting weight on it.
Exactly.
Everything's going to go over. Now your hip starts giving you issue. This right knee, that right ankle, everything. Your whole body starts to shift over. You start to guard on this side. This trap starts to fire up. Everything's connected. And you can't ignore it. 230 pounds walking on your feet. You start.
Yeah.
If you don't have those things in a healthy position, it's only going to compound. Like you said, it's going to start at the feet. It's going to climb itself all the way up.
So funny story with this for you guys that don't know. I've had to listen to DJ's foot story for about 4 fucking months now.
Seriously.
Oh my
It's serious.
God.
This thing
Oh
would have
my-
killed most
oh
of
my-
North America. You're lucky it happened to me. You think COVID was bad? You wait till this fucker comes on here.
But that point is exactly true, because when you I don't know, I can't even remember what it was called when they went in there to do it, but doing all that issues to your foot, your gait changed because you're favoring so much on that right side, and lines of tension in the body, they run diagonal. So if I see a problem with the left foot, I'm going to be like, oh, he's going to put way more stress on his right hip now. If he's putting way more stress on his right hip now, things have to balance. Gravity goes straight down and the body distributes evenly going up diagonally. So now I'm going to have shoulder. So it's like, it goes like this, in my opinion, I found with guys. But your foot is a great example, and you tried your best to weight bear on that foot, but you just couldn't.
I couldn't do it, man. And I ended up putting all my weight on the inside just to lift up, so that part wouldn't make contact with the ground. It was so uncomfortable. So we doing heavy farmers carries, and I could feel the inside of my knee on fire. Dude.
Yep.
Just like, oh my God, like I feel strong, but I don't want to put weight on this thing right now. And now we do 20-minute walks. We get done, the inside of my knee is just throbbing. The back of my knee starts to fire up. And I'm like, what is that? And because I haven't been dealing with that forever, you kind of just get numb to it. You're like, oh, it'll be better tomorrow. It'll be better tomorrow. It'll be better tomorrow. It's not getting better tomorrow. Like, oh my God. Like, have I created a nightmare here?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the advanced awareness and have somebody to look at you like, hey man, like, let's stop doing that. You're favoring it too much. Like, you're going to throw everything else off. And we do. It's like, just give it a couple days. Give it a couple days. Let the thing calm down. Then we'll go back and reattack. And that's ultimately what we need to do. Just at some point, pushing through is always good until you really start to have negative effects on the opposite side. Like, I appreciate the effort, man. Let's tone it down a little bit. Right now, you're sacrificing too much for that one thing. Okay.
And you can overlook the feet as much as you want, but most of the older military people I've worked with all have back issues, all have shoulder issues, and almost all of them have feet problems. And it's just from the amount of time they've spent on their feet, the amount of load carriage it's been pressed down onto their feet, the amount of running, the amount of just stress that's been put on them. But I would say it's equally the amount of non-attention that's been given to them, because it's just like, hey, it's just your feet. You just cover them up. Whereas your hands, it's different. I can see my hands. If there's a problem with my hands, calluses, cuts, whatever, I see them. I'm going to address that. My feet, like you just said, socks, cut your toenails.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth, man. Everybody ignores it until it becomes so bad. Now you have to address it. And you're like, well, how many more of these injuries that I'm dealing with were caused by that one thing? Probably more than you fail to realize.
Yes. We're going to take you guys into the weight room with part 2 here and give you guys a bunch of practical applications of not only restoring range of motion, but building some strength in that area.
Looking forward to it.